UltraLife today. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for telling your friends about us. We've got a growing audience, and it means so much to you. It means so much to us. Our promise to you is that we're going to continue to bring people like Keith Bishop who have this unique insight into people's health challenges and how to solve it outside that conventional medical paradigm through exercise, through nutrition, through supplementation. This guy educates himself constantly. He's constantly learning new things, and he learns from consulting with people like you as well. And he's been doing this for over 2 decades now. So anyway, I'm Josh Bellew. That's Adam Payne, and this is Keith Bishop. And Keith, we're so thankful that you're here, being with us today. And Adam brought up something regarding this little segment we're going to do. Inflammation. What is inflammation? What is its source? What does it do to people? Is it like Adam and I believe, kind of that foundational thing that affects everybody and even is responsible for so much of the diseases that we have, especially here in the Western world?
Now, in the legal sense, you've just given a leading question here, John.
I have so done that. I'm feeding this guy where I want him to go. But yes, that's true, Adam. Shamelessly, I'm doing that.
Yeah. So inflammation is, it affects every part of our body, and so even depression, anxiety. They measure IL-6 in the brain and
subclinical inflammation of the brain.
Adam's wheelhouse.
PTSD, inflammation, and bone loss, inflammation, heart attacks, strokes, inflammation in the blood
diabetes,
diabetes. I mean, just everything.
These rampant conditions.
And
inflammation.
So there's kind of a little story. I say that if I were stranded on a desert island, and I could take one pallet of pills with me.
You and I are the same
It'd be UltraCur.
Yeah.
And along with the NAC. And so for everything, I mean, and if there's going to be one pill, that would be it.
I have actually shamelessly stolen that line from you. I heard you say that in the past, and I have said that for about 6 years now. I'm saying, if I was marooned and if there was just one single thing I could take, it's affected my life so positively, Keith, it would be UltraCur.
Oh, yeah.
It really would. I'd actually do UltraCur Advanced, but
UltraCur, the family of those products that use that unique technology that you invented, Adam.
The Fellowship of Aging and Regenerative Medicine, they inflict a paradigm on their fellowship, which is different than what the medical community tells people. But they say the 3 foundations of their practice is oxidative stress, understanding how oxidative stress, and that's a whole talk that we haven't even touched on, right? Which is about the redox cycle and how free radicals can affect cellular health. The second part of the triangle is inflammation, and the third part is autoimmunity. So, and those all 3 talk to each other, and so that's what they do. You're as a clinical nutritionist, I'm hearing a different paradigm that you approach things at, but inflammation is a key part of managing that.
Definitely.
What are the different strategies that you found, Keith, that can help balance healthy inflammation in an individual?
So genetically, some people are just more prone for it.
Interesting.
And so there's going to be some genetic aspects. There's some lifestyle decisions that we make, certain ways that we eat, certain things that we do.
So we can have a pro-inflammatory diet.
Exactly. And so that's critical, and so probably one of the more frustrating things is most people just want to take a pill that's not going to give the results we need. And so we got to change what we're eating, improve. I mean, you don't have to be perfect, but you have to improve upon what you're eating, and lifestyle. We're sitting down today. I stand most of the time, just trying to be more physically active, and so, part of I think inflammation and blood glucose, and so that elevated blood glucose and insulin, damages the blood vessels, and that creates a whole cascade of more inflammation. Alzheimer's is also called diabetes type 3.
With that glucose
and with the glucose balance. Right. And once again, there's genetics involved. One person can eat that way, the next person can't. And so we've got to.
I've also heard that that Alzheimer's can be an overabundance of iron in the brain too.
Yes, iron or copper.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to have both of those. And so, but abundance goes back to that oxidative damage. Okay, so if copper or iron are damaging the cells because they're actually stealing electrons from a cell,
causing oxidative stress
and damage, then the next cell is going to be damaged, the next cell is going to be damaged, the next cell is going to be damaged.
A cascade.
If you don't have enough antioxidants on board from whether it be supplements, targeted supplements, or especially food, eating right. And so there we're talking about the redox cycle of mitigating those oxidative stress. Yeah. I'd have to add in diabetes is probably, and I don't know.
Insulin resistance kind of thing.
Something. Yeah. Insulin resistance is critical. And so curcumin and berberine are my favorite two things. So I guess if somebody said, what, 2 pills? Matter of fact, our associates asked me that the other day. Well, Keith, what would you do?
2 pills now.
And actually, so now I say, well, half that pallet is going to have to be some berberine.
Nice.
Okay, because berberine helps with everything.
Yeah, I've heard it's actually a marvelous antimicrobial.
Mm-hmm. Yes, helps balance the good bacteria, kills out the bad bacteria and parasites and stuff.
Interesting. Yeah, and also I think fungus also plays a role.
Yes, and fungus, and as part of that bad bacteria, fungus, and which we have bacteria and fungus and good and bad. Of all of that in the gut. So it helps to balance that, but helps move the sugars into the cells, and therefore we just don't get that damage to the blood vessels. And so every part of our body, brain especially, and eyes, retina, every part of our body has that blood supply. Mm-hmm. And if the insulin and glucose are elevated, that damage that blood vessel, and so now we start getting the plaque buildup, get atherosclerosis, get narrowing the blood vessels. And matter of fact, and so we have a little tiny capillary, only big enough for red blood cell to go through. If
there's any damage
in there, now that red blood cell gets stuck. We get a little tiny blood clot that you can't see, you can't measure, and now all those cells fed by that capillary die out.
That's crazy.
Okay, so that's going to affect whatever part of the body.
So that contributes to macular degeneration and all sorts of issues.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, even now, they're studying the little rabbit's eyes and looking at glaucoma. It's a vascular disease.
That's very interesting.
So it's circulation. We have to improve circulation, to whatever part of the body. Even cancer, if you don't get good blood supply, that seems to stimulate some growth factors in the tumor to make up for that. And the tumor starts growing more rapid and making its own blood vessels. It creates some growth factors.
So Keith, we're talking about inflammation, and I know we'll ultimately move to, I want to ask you about your own personal experience with UltraCur, the technology that Adam invented to take these polyphenolic compounds like berberine and curcumin and actually get them in the bloodstream at exponential levels. But I want to come back to something we haven't discussed yet. A lot of people are going, how do I figure out if I've got inflammation and I'm inflamed? What is a test that you would rely on to figure out how much, where are my inflammatory markers?
So, on the horses, so I just kind of feel their legs and, that's a little bit warm. Okay, so a little bit warm.
Tender and swollen.
Tender, swollen, pain, heat. The horses can't talk to me, and you can't even tell it by watching them walk off. And if it's just minor, but you can feel the heat coming from it. And it can be subclinical. And so, matter of fact, recently I just had a gentleman that had a very high HSCRP. That means he's literally got inflammation inside his blood vessels.
And for those listening, HSCRP is a high sensitivity C-reactive protein test, right? And it measures just kind of a subset of inflametry markers in the body. Is that
C-reactive protein.
Okay. And that's a simple and inexpensive test, right?
Inexpensive test, probably $30, $40, cash,
Excellent.
And so it's great to know. Matter of fact, we looked at his history, and it was down here, and now it's up here. And so, we've got to get rid of that inflammation.
Well, what's a number? I've heard a lot of different integrative practitioners talk about the number they like to see people CRP, C-reactive protein test. Look at, what do you look at there for what's high to you and what's right in the zone that you want to be?
That HS, also known as cardio, CRP, which means inside the blood vessels. There's another CRP that's more just general inflammation.
Okay.
But the vascular disease number, it needs to be below 1.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything above 1, and you've got inflammation somewhere. Okay. And matter of fact, it could even be colitis. Yeah, I've seen
it's leaking over.
Exactly. It's going, well, because the blood's everywhere.
Yeah.
Blood vessels are everywhere. And we just don't think of that. But ulcerated colitis, it's blood vessels involved. Blood vessels
just to interject, I in my previous life, I actually worked in rheumatology. And we developed the gold standard right now for measuring systemic inflammation in the joints systemically through a blood test called the Vectra, which was developed here at the University of Oklahoma. I was part of a group that did rheumatology and cardiology, and we saw that inflammation in the joints not only leaked over into the circulation,
this is fascinating stuff,
but it affected cardiac health. Where people that with rheumatoid arthritis had a shorter life expectancy because they were dying from cardiovascular issues. Essentially, the inflammation in the joints was affecting the cardiovascular system, causing plaque formation in the arteries, causing a reduction in lifespan.
Right, yeah, and not just the joints, teeth. Another significant issue. That inflammation and that bacteria spreads, increases the risk of heart attack, increases the risk of Alzheimer's. Oral health critical.
So one of the key contributing factors, if a predictive value of someone getting rheumatoid arthritis, poor oral health, and a smoker, those were if those were the two contributing factors, most people a lot more people got rheumatoid arthritis.
Right.
They got the flora in the mouth causing those issues.
And now there are some genetic predispositions.
Right.
Matter of fact, I used to test positive for rheumatoid arthritis. I test negative now. I saw some weird things happen, like weird pains happen. Matter of fact, I've had to have both my hips replaced.
Wow.
And that's actually where I really got into the UltraCur, was for that pain management. Matter of fact, the doctor said, I don't see how you're walking. And matter of fact, I got mad at the doctor because I didn't think it was that bad. And although I could see it in the X-ray, it looked like a square peg up there in my hip. So,
wow.
And so it's very significant. And then I had to get off of the UltraCur for surgery. Oh yeah.
It hurt?
Oh,
it hurt.
So you knew that UltraCur was helping at that point?
Oh yeah.
I remember Keith telling me that he'd been out in Colorado, and I think he'd forgotten to take UltraCur for one of his really, what I call lethal horseback riding sessions there, potentially
when I fell off or not.
Right, but I remember you saying to me when I popped in after you'd gotten back from Colorado, and you said, oh my gosh, I forgot UltraCur one day. And
right.
Boy, did I feel it after that day on the horse.
It really makes a difference.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, so what we do, guys, is we bind, the curcumin molecule doesn't sit as a molecule. It's bound to itself. We bind the molecule of curcumin to a protein scaffold. So as the body digests the protein, those molecules are freely available to be absorbed. What we figured out was that curcumin binds to the NF-kappa beta node. It binds to a whole bunch of stuff, but specifically to NF-kappa beta, which is like the gas pedal for inflammation. If you bind to NF-kappa beta, it essentially slows down that inflammation signal. So I liken it like the inflammation system is like the 911 call that a cell makes to the police force, right?
It's actually the first signal is like come repair.
Yeah, or come help.
Yeah, help repair.
Emergency.
And so if you attach to NF-kappa beta, you're telling the cell, just put down the phone. You don't need to call right yet. You're good, right? And especially when you have damage, when you don't want inflammation to come in and try to attack things, it's super critical. And as we age, balancing that inflammation signal is so important for our overall health.
Exactly. So that inflammation, that's part of the aspect in the brain. And that's where the researchers or medical community is trying to come up with treatments for Alzheimer's. And so they know that beta amyloid is a problem. Let's shut down that production.
That didn't help.
That didn't help. And so because there's other things that are allowing that to happen. That may have been the Band-Aid, to trying to repair that inflammation and process going in, whether it be copper or iron or a hit to the head and whatever damage or vascular damages or diabetes, that started that damage in the brain. So curcumin is one of those things, foundation things that I do, along with trying to open up the blood vessels. So another important area is actually nitric oxide and open the blood vessels.
Hold that thought, Keith. We're going to go to break now. This is UltraLife Today. I'm here with Adam Payne, CEO and founder of Ultra Botanica. Keith Bishop, retired pharmacist with a totally awesome career that he's taken on over the last couple of decades in helping people solve their health challenges and problems. I'm Josh Bellew, and we'll be right back.
Our mission is to take nature's most beloved botanicals and enhance them with our liquid protein scaffold technology. This helps it reach your cells faster and better. With exponentially enhanced bioavailability, you'll feel better every day. Ultra Botanica, the feel-good curcumin.
Welcome back. This is UltraLife Today. I'm Josh Bellew, Adam Payne sitting on my far left, and Keith Bishop in the middle here, who we've been getting some incredible information from today about health, everything from vitamin D to magnesium and things for asthma, the connection there with asthma, and even with migraine headaches, acid reflux. And before we go any further, I want to let people know how they can actually get a hold of Keith Bishop for private consultation. I'm sure you even do a lot of Zooming these days with people, don't you,
I
Keith?
have clients all over the United States.
Very good.
So you can be calling from anywhere.
You can reach out to Flourish Pharmacy, and the area code is 405, and the phone number is 751-3333. What a great phone number, Keith. 405-751-3333. Also, Flourish has a website. It's Flourish, Flourish, RX, like prescription, flourishrx.com. And then you can actually email Keith personally at info@flourishrx.com. And again, the phone number is 405-751-3333. And the man on my left is Keith Bishop, and he's going to tease us a little bit with his area of speciality that he has fallen into over the years related to Alzheimer's and dementia. So Keith, enlighten us, and then we're going to actually have to have you back another time and really expand on that and some of your protocols. How in the world did you get into this side of dealing with people's health? Because it is, to me, a really unique niche, and most people don't address it. Certainly in the conventional medical space, it still seems to me to be a question mark. How do you treat it? What happens?
Well, so I got started in it, and I was already in the natural area and just starting out when my father was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And so I didn't know enough at that time to have an impact on his life. It was an early onset. And then after he passed away, my mother was diagnosed with glioblastoma.
Wow.
And so
what a freight train attack.
So she didn't survive that, and so Alzheimer's and cancer are kind of like my specialty. So I'm trying to keep that from happening to myself. And so I've spent a lot of time in research, and at night TV's on. Well, I have to admit, I'm probably on my computer reading, and learning and checking and that out. And so, and matter of fact, what's so interesting is actually the cancer, and Alzheimer's protocols are the same thing.
Yeah. What?
Whoa!
And they're the same thing.
This is new to me.
It's diet, the same diet and lifestyle. I mean, we've got to eat right. We have to be careful about, glucose and ice cream and diabetes and things. And we have to be physically active. We have to improve the blood circulation. So we test for nitric oxide, in the office. And so cancer loves low oxygen levels, low blood supply. And so the brain, we have people that are getting better with Alzheimer's. And so, but we're doing that. We're testing their nitric oxide. We're supporting that. We're giving them UltraCur for inflammation. We're giving them berberine for their blood glucose, and so long as they have the proper support at home, they're going to get better. I expect that. Now, I can't say healed, but there, we can slow that progress down. And matter of fact, I really typically see people.
You see a reversal?
I see people get better.
What? That's incredible.
But they have to have help. And so, they're often when I get to see them, they're not going to remember to take things. They have to have that family member help.
So is there a point of no return?
Oh, yes, there is. There's going to be. Yeah, definitely. So once that damage, gets bad enough and the person is losing, significant functions, but at early stages, whenever they're first diagnosed and the doctors are trying to give them the prescription drugs that only temporarily help take them back 6 months to where they used to be.
Okay.
And then they keep getting worse. So it's not addressing the underlying issue.
But at least you've reversed some of the overall damage, and you've gotten, and you've maybe slowed down the progress of the disease.
The body can heal if we do the right thing. So, kidney disease, your GFR is low or creatinine is high. That's not a death sentence. And now, but I mean, traditionally, yes, most doctors, they just, you have, whatever stage kidney disease, and it's going to get worse. But now I expect that GFR number to get better. The kidneys are an organ, they can be operated on. We expect to see those numbers get better. But we've got to improve the blood supply, be careful about what we're eating. We have to be physically active, and you have to take the right supplements.
That makes sense. So, it's a holistic approach to brain health, and the brain being a huge utilizer of energy, right? And all the time, lots of energy. It needs
24 hours a day.
What's the butyric acid? I've heard it needs a very specific kind of fuel for it to function properly.
Yeah, one of them, and it can use sugar. We can also go to the fats,
right?
And just kind of being simple stated on that. And our body loves to burn fat, so that's one of the things I do myself is intermittent fasting. And so we have to train our body to burn fat for energy so that when we consume the fat, we can burn that too and keep our blood glucose down. As part of the insulin sensitivity and glucose.
That's fascinating.
And so, so that's part of that protocol.
So it's not just one here's the disease, here's the solution. It's all these systems kind of working together that you have to balance.
Right.
So inflammation is one, glucose is another.
Right. And
oxidative stress.
Oxidative stress, exactly. And so that's where I do like the NAC. And so because that helps repair the the cells, the brain cells.
Well, NAC, just for people that don't know, is N-acetylcysteine.
Right.
It's a very, very powerful antioxidant in and of itself, but it's also the precursor, one of the kind of the thing that the body needs before it actually produces
building block
glutathione.
The ultimate.
Which is our body's natural antioxidant.
Right.
And so to be clear, Keith, you're not waving a magic wand.
No.
When somebody is talking about potentially moving into Alzheimer's, you're talking about diet, you're talking about supplementation, you're talking about exercise, and those are all key factors. I'm just curious. This is one of my own pet questions I like to ask people. How much of a role do you think just exercise by itself plays? Let's say there's a pie here, and you've got nutrition, diet, supplementation, and then you've got exercise. What percentage do you think drives health of exercise?
Yeah, I think it's probably at least 25%. Matter of fact, 25, exercise activity level. I'm active. I've got scars from the dogs and the horses and the trees and so I'm active and always doing things but then we have to eat right, and that's critical, and we have to sleep right. And so I don't have enough time in my day. I don't want to sleep, but I make it a point. Wow. I have a routine at night that I go through, so I will be able to go to sleep, turn my mind off, and get my sleep so that I can get up at 5 a.m. and start doing my writing and doing things. So
that's a beautiful balance. It sounds like a beautiful cycle and a balance that you brought to your own life.
Our body loves routine. And we don't realize that unless you start thinking about it, but our body does like routine.
I wish my wife would listen to this.
And so maybe she will.
I don't know.
Third-party credibility from Keith. Certainly not going to listen to Adam, right? Anyway, I'm not going to contradict you, but it's interesting. I've heard health practitioners, integrative health practitioners, and others say that exercise actually can, in their opinion, can occupy a much greater space than diet and supplementation alone, and that exercise is also one of the quickest ways, if you start walking, to begin to shift the body and begin to move it on that path to health.
Everybody is their own.
And I'm just
definitely.
curious. That's why I asked the question.
But I find we're just not eating right.
Yeah,
it's the start for a lot of things.
We are not eating right. And it's not like we have to be perfect either.
Right.
I do occasionally have ice cream.
Yep.
I don't have it in the house.
Right.
Because we would eat it all the time.
We interview a lady named Kenzie Taylor, who's a naturopath here in town, and we asked her for an UltraLife Today health tip on one of our first broadcasts we did with her, and she said, well, one of my rules is the 80-20 rule. And Adam are like, what's the 80-20 rule? And she says, 80% of the time you're going to follow the lifestyle choices that you need to make, and about 20% of the time you're able to divert, and then come right back to the 80% for the most of the time.
I definitely.
Like you said, a bowl of ice cream every now and then, something like that. Exactly. I did miss a workout, once or twice.
Exactly.
Because I was on vacation or whatever. It's okay.
But
just get back on the wagon,
every time that I see somebody that doesn't, if they got better and then they start declining again, is because they quit doing, they quit eating right, they quit exercising,
doing the things that they know got them well, right?
Yeah, and they're some of them are willing to take pills, but that's not the answer,
right?
Necessarily,
it's not the
whole pie. We've got to get everything,
right. And there could be some genetic components too.
Definitely genetics involved, and that's where a healthcare practitioner can help determine some of that, meaning look at symptoms. Okay, what are my symptoms? What do I need to concentrate on? What's going to be the number one thing I need to do today?
So Keith, we've got about 4 minutes left, and I want to ask you, what's it like when someone calls Keith Bishop, because you're going to be getting some phone calls and you're going to be getting some people to reach out to you. By the way, the phone number to call is area code 405-751-3333, 405-751-3333. That's to be able to get a private consultation with Keith Bishop, either by Zoom or in person if you're local to Oklahoma City. Also, info, I-N-F-O, at Flourish, FLOURISHRX.com to reach him. But Keith, what can somebody expect when they come in to sit down with Keith Bishop? What do you take them through? And then how do you actually begin to give yourself that foundational understanding of what's really wrong with them, and then creating a roadmap for success for them?
So we typically start off with a nutrition physical. So we're going to look at hair, skin, nails, tongue, saliva pH, zinc taste test, fingernails, cuticles, palms, and then blood pressures, nitric oxide, and because all that is all common no matter what the health issue. Okay,
that's very comprehensive.
Yeah, and it's very general, but still we got to find out those basic things, because those are also things we can measure, we can make a change, and we can see an improvement.
Interesting.
And then we'll look at blood tests, and then actually everybody's different, so it depends.
So no one size fits all, right?
Exactly. So even if a person has Alzheimer's, in my mind, I go, oh man, I want them to do this, but that may not be the path for that particular person.
Okay. And so you utilize some diagnostic testing tools that are available to you. I think I've been over at your pharmacy a number of times, and it seemed to me like there may have been as many as 50 different tests you may offer. Is there even more than that? There was a lot. I was like, wow. So you can get very specific, though, with people about testing for hormones.
Thyroid, whatever kind of blood test, and stool cultures to genomic tests and things like that. So,
fantastic. So, please reach out to Keith Bishop. We're going to wind this segment down, but again, it's Keith Bishop, our dear friend, retired pharmacist that started a new life and has helped a lot of people develop a new life from traditionally big health challenges that doctors oftentimes don't have the answers for, other than
the number and the contacts one more time, Josh.
Yeah, it's 405-751-3333. That's Keith Bishop at 405-751-3333. And then info, I-N-F-O, at Flourish, FLOURISHRX ultralife.com. This has been UltraLife today with our dear friend Keith Bishop, my dear friend Adam Payne, sitting down on the end there, the inventor of the UltraCur technology and the CEO of Ultra Botanica. And I'm Josh Bellew. They called me, not even tongue-in-cheek anymore, the chief product evangelist for Ultra Botanica. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining us. Bye.
Thank you.
If you see a people going through